Welcome to Catamiro Show, Nate. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I'm just easing into winter here in Croatia. I've got a bit of sun in my face. It's reflecting off of the sea here in Rijeka.
You just
So yeah,
mentioned that, and I was like, okay, it's like minus 20 here, you know.
it's
And
still
you,
not that warm. It's not that warm. It's 5 degrees, so it's not. It's not.
but sea is there, like,
Yeah, yeah.
right? It's
Between the
changed.
rain,
Yeah.
between the rain. Yeah, it's been raining for like I don't know. It feels like months, but it's probably only reality like 4 or 5 days. But when it stops raining, everyone lifts the shutters up, and it's like, oh, the sun is out. It's lovely. Yeah,
It's
lovely.
so cool. We had a conversation like a few months ago, and I was truly impressed with everything you do. The conversation was supposed to last like 15 minutes, but it was about an hour because you have so much experience and you have so rich life experience also. Would you like to share a little bit about your story, please?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say thank you. And there's never a one-sided conversation. I always find that everyone delivers massive value when you speak to them, and I thoroughly enjoyed it also myself. What you said to me was really important, and I got a lot of value from you actually as well, Catherine. So yeah, I wanted to thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, I was born quite a long time ago now. I'm 47 now, despite the fact I still feel like 20, 25.
That's cool.
So my father was an MIT graduate and also MIT professor, an engineering professor, and his father actually went to MIT as well. And for me, I found that very intimidating. He was very intimidating because he's American as well. He's 90 years old now, believe it or not, which is just amazing that we still have him with us. And on both sides of my family, there was a kind of interest in wine and beer and that sort of thing. Because my mum came from the Mann side of the Watney Mann Brewing Company, which was Mann's brewery was actually, I think, the eighth or the ninth largest brewery in the United Kingdom, around about, wow, I think it was 18 something. So it was quite an old. She was very posh. She grew up with an indoor swimming pool in her house, and and had everything that she wanted. Like she would go there with my father and in her little Mini with him, and then she would actually have a guy who would wash her car and park it for her, and so it was quite a strange upbringing for me, because my mother was so posh, but my dad was such an entrepreneur that he'd been there and done that. He used to have a chauffeured car when he was in America, because he used to work for his father, who was actually also an industrial engineer, and they used to run a factory. So they had a box at the Opera House, and they had this fancy lifestyle, right? So when he came to England, he became Britain's leading business management expert, and that I found very, very intimidating also, because he kept pushing me to go to school and get good grades, and I just rebelled against all of that, like literally rebelled against everything. I got expelled from boarding school when I was 13 years old. 14, and I was so upset. My parents were absolutely mad. My dad was crazy. I can't even remember him talking to me, but my mum was also crazy mad as well. But it was an awful school, and I find that I have a real problem with a lot of these elite private schools, and I actually got into the only school that would have me that was a private school, because I was so bad, and I met some really nice, normal-ish kind of people whose parents were still from all around the world, and they were very interesting people, and I still am in contact with a number of those guys now. One guy runs like an affiliate marketing, network marketing business. He's in Mexico. So there are a number of people that have become lifelong friends from that bad decision. Yeah. I mean, I was only drinking, right? I mean, I grew up in a winery. I mean, like I had alcohol everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so at the age of 6, my dad actually, winding back the clock, he actually built a winery on top of my mum's garden right next door to the house in the middle of West Sussex, which is which was an hour or so on the train. We were 10 minutes from a very fast train because the chairman of British Rail, I believe, at that time lived very close to the station in Hazelmere, which is our local town, 10 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an insane kind of upbringing because I had an unlimited supply of alcohol. I mean, literally, if I hadn't had some guidance, I wouldn't probably be, or some divine guidance, perhaps I probably wouldn't be here, because I've seen so many people with massive alcohol problems, because I used to work in the booze industry for my whole life. But we had a fantastic little business there. We were doing around 500,000 bottles a year. We had customers ranging from Hampton Court, the Tower of London, to finest restaurants in New York for our honey wine, which was made from pure honey. And it was a very interesting upbringing, because my father was, obviously, being American, I think he appreciates English history more than the British do, because we kind of take it for granted. We get force-fed, Henry VIII and all of this history that dates back for however many thousand years. And it's quite interesting when you sort of find someone that's really enthusiastic about that, and then they move to your country and they know more about things than a lot of other people, and he did, and so we launched lots of different products. We sold all this booze to lots of different personal people, one-to-one connections who, people would come to the shop. So we had 33,000 visitors a year to the shop, which was literally in the middle of nowhere. But he worked out that if he put up a new sign, that sign would actually generate 5% more visitors to our shop. So every time he got a sign on the main road, 5% more visitors to the shop. And it was interesting because those signs cost £600 each, but he worked out the return on investment was worth it, right? And so my dad, I mean, he used to get press. We were on the television, and we were, in all the newspapers. We were even in something called the Sunday. There was a kind of, I'm going to call it a working man's paper, which was called The Sport, or the Sunday Sport. And this page 3 model, they used to have topless models in these papers at that time. And this page 3 model came to the winery, and I think I was 23 or something. I was kind of still young. I had curly brown hair, and I thought I was really handsome and this and it was really funny. I remember her sitting there on this wine barrel, and we had all these pictures taken, and I filled up her glass with some wine, right? This sparkling cocktail kind of thing we were drinking. And I remember that I had these fake notes in my hand, and I remember slapping this fake notes on her leg and saying, "Look after those for a minute, I'll just fill up your glass." And it was just so I had all these kind of crazy kind of moments during my time working there. I worked for my dad probably for, I would say, from the age of 12, maybe 11 actually, up to 30 years old. I worked for him, and we had a really fun, exciting kind of business. I mean, I would drive around in my sales rep car, and I would go to lots of different tourist attractions and give them free tastings, and then sell them lots of booze, and come home with the orders, right? And it was a really interesting time in my life. I learned a lot about all sorts of different things. And then, my dad retired, and it all kind of disappeared, and because I went a different direction in my life, and these things happen, right, in life. And sometimes when you look back from where you've arrived, you look back and you sort of, it makes sense, right? Like I worked with a coach, and I still work with her, a executive leadership coach. And
Mm-hmm.
Kim Adele says, she says, life makes sense in the rear view mirror. And that is something that I think, if you sat down, anyone listening to this, if you sat down and you really thought about your life, and you look back at all the different, maybe bad things that have happened to you, and then you look at what would have happened if you'd have continued along that pathway, and who you would have become, you probably wouldn't like yourself, right? And
Exactly.
yeah, so I find the whole thing very interesting. I may end up going into the wine business again at some stage, because I'm quite interested in perhaps having a small little winery, or a vineyard, just a small little vineyard, maybe just an acre, just to work out my grip strength on my right hand, when I go and prune the vines. And because I've got a cracking idea for a red wine that I think I want to bring to market, but it will only be small production, just for the love of the fresh air, and
I just wanted to ask, probably for the love of all of that.
The love of the fresh air, and actually just being connected with the end product, like being connected with making something that is, your love goes into that, doesn't it? And so I kind of gave up drinking for a while, and I really don't drink very much at all, because I'm sort of big into jiu-jitsu these days. But it doesn't mean that I'm completely against drinking. I think it has a place. It has a place, and sometimes in life we need it. Actually, and to all the people that are retired drinkers and everything, I still like the thought of having a drink, but I know that actually drinking, regularly for me isn't what I need to be doing, if you know what I mean. So I kind of ended up in this place of being a career changer, right? So being at a point where, okay, so I'm not now working for my dad's winery. I can't knock on the door and say, oh, I'm working for so-and-so, buy this, you know who my dad is, you know who I am. And that was quite weird, because he had a massive personal brand, right? Like everybody knew who he was. Even in these business networking groups, he called himself the Yank with the tank. And he wasn't, he didn't have a tank, but one of our friends up the road had a tank. So he was very clever at actually doing the personal branding piece, and he managed to get his 1 minute elevator pitch down to an absolute T, and he could describe the markets that we were in, the products we made, and everything. But it's interesting when you talk to a lot of people, and they're in corporations, and they're thinking, well, it's very difficult for them to actually build a personal brand, because the corporation has such a massive brand.
Yes.
And it's like, and they struggle with thinking, well, what expertise do I have? Like, why am I so amazing? And I think that's the thing I took away from my dad, was kind of how he managed to sort of do that. And so back to where I was, I kind of went from that into becoming like a freelance salesperson. I was kind of at times unemployed, found that very difficult. That is actually, I think, the most humbling experience, being out of work, not having any money. And I remember I tell a story on one of my podcasts when I talked about how I got a parking ticket on my motorcycle. So I rode to the job center. At that time, you had to go to the job center. You'd sign your paperwork, and you'd tell them that you needed, more interviews, and what you were doing to get work, and this and that. And this woman called Rita, she was so negative. Every 2 weeks or week, I'd go and see her, and she was so negative. And I was just so surprised that she was so negative. But I kept a positive mental attitude pretty much throughout that, until I came out of the job center one day, and I had a parking ticket on my motorcycle. And I was so annoyed because it was like, I remember it clearly. I parked right next to the wall, and the pavement was maybe 6 or 7 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically had this parking ticket. And to put it in perspective, at that time, job seekers allowance is what it was called. You would receive £36.27 a week, right? Or something, or £46 maybe. And this parking ticket was £35, and I was just like, so I really struggled like massively for many years. Through sales job to sales job. Then I went into setting up like a marketing business, which I decided I didn't want to be in. So I kind of left that to my business partner and went into a different direction, because it was like a dental marketing business. But throughout all of these changes in our careers, we learn stuff. We learn really valuable things. So kind of got to a point where I realized I needed to learn some new skills. And I bumped into this gentleman called Douglas, and Douglas taught me all about personal branding. He was actually an what was he? He was an director of a company called Leo Burnett, and Leo Burnett were an advertising marketing company.
Of course, it's still well known.
Right. So he was actually what was he? He was a commercial director, right? So he was he's a heavy hitter, this guy, right? And I met him at just the time of my life when I really needed a mentor, and he mentored me, and he helped me to guide my personal brand in the direction of technology, because I'm very interested in technology. It's something that I love, and I've learned a lot about. And because of Douglas's help and the process that he taught me, which was a very old, time-honored process, it transformed my whole life, actually, my whole career and everything, because IBM asked me to go to a roundtable event and talk about the implications of AI and ethics in AI. And this was in 2014. So, but it wasn't an overnight thing. Like, everyone thinks like that you're an overnight success, right? Like,
while it's actually like 2 decades of work.
Yeah. And they don't realize like how much time and effort and how much work goes into steering yourself in the right direction. And sure, you can blow up on social media and you can look amazing, but it doesn't give you any substance, right?
Exactly. That's what I wanted to ask to you. Now, when you mentioned the personal brand and all that, everyone is talking about personal brand, but personal brand is so much more than social media and how people see us, right? And there is also one more thing. Before we started recording, you mentioned it's a International Imposter Syndrome Day today, right? Or something like that.
No. That's let me see. I forget which day. It's April 12th, 13th.
I don't know why we mentioned this, but it's like, how do these two things go together? Like personal brand and imposter syndrome, right? Maybe it's not even that day today, but never mind. It's kind of very interesting to see the implications one to another, because we all have imposter syndrome sometimes, right? And on the other side, what is expected from us as a business leaders is to have a personal brand. So what is the balance there? How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, this is why I love talking to you, because you have this amazing talent of pulling out the most amazing connections between things, right? And personal branding and imposter syndrome are so closely related that I don't really think people realize. And there are loads of personal brand consultants and there are loads of coaches, right? But I don't think they put together these two things. And actually, if you work with someone who's really amazing at coaching or personal branding, I believe that the crossover between those two things is huge, right? And
exactly.
And the reason I say that is because personal branding helps build your confidence massively. In the beginning, perhaps not, because you might be repositioning yourself into a certain direction, as a new career or a new expertise or something like this. But actually, if you're aware of who you are, I think building confidence and aligning that with your abilities is the sweet spot, right? And imposter syndrome doesn't allow people to do that, because they always think that they're a failure. They not a failure. They think that they don't deserve the recognition, or that someone's going to find out that they are inept or incompetent at this particular skill. And this could be someone who's been doing it for 20 years, right? But I think imposter syndrome is very interesting. This is the day that I founded with the two co-founders, which is Kim Adele Randall and Lisa Ventura. Lisa Ventura now got an MBE, actually, which is from the British Empire. So she's going to go and pick that up from the king, which is amazing. Yeah, amazing, right? Like, imagine. So, and she got that for her services to, I think, diversity and inclusion and this sort of stuff in cybersecurity. And so these two ladies, they both suffer from imposter syndrome in different ways. And what I realized is that I was suffering, I think, a little bit from imposter syndrome in a different way, more along the lines of perhaps a lack of confidence in myself, and a negative self-talk, right? So what I did is I actually took some advice from Kim, and she said, well, what you need to do is every morning you need to wake up, and if you're thinking something negative, you need to write it down, and then you need to cross it off, and you need to look at the evidence that it's not real, right? And that in fact the opposite is true. And I did this process probably for a month or two, and it made a massive difference to my life, and actually really helped me a lot, to be honest.
And it's like discovering your own limiting beliefs, right? Because you become aware of your thoughts, and then you realize, wait a minute, it's really not true. I was building my personal brand. I didn't even know I was doing that. I will be honest, because I was just following my mentors and what they told me. But what ended up to be is that when people see a kind of a, society accepted credibility, they don't ask a lot of questions. They know who you are. And what happens to me is that people tell me, oh, we Googled you, we know everything about you, but they actually don't know anything. They see only what's out there, right? What are your thoughts about that? Like, we all have our, if I may say so, like Tina Turner used to say, a stage persona. We'll have, all the roles that we like have every single day. Despite like building our own business and all of that, if we put that aside, there's so many layers of each and every one of us. What are your thoughts about that? What is exactly personal brand? And how do you see these layers which are actually behind and deep inside who we truly are, right?
It's a very good good question. I think that if you look at visibility and actually authenticity, and then you look at, say, one is what you are. So say you go from 1 to 10, right? 10 is everyone knows everything about you, you're everywhere online. And then number 1 is there's a small part of you, right? And I think that it is our choice as to what we reveal to the world, right? Me, you probably would have a lot of information about my interests, about what I like doing with my spare time, etc. But actually, you're not gonna hear about my bad days, right? Because I don't want to talk about my bad days, because look, it's like, sure, that's going to build empathy, and people are going to love you, and they're going to be like, oh well, like he's got roadworks outside his house, how sad. It's like, they don't care, like they really don't care about
really
that.
yeah, they don't care.
They want someone to uplift them, right? Like that's what they want. So I think that whilst it is our choice as to how much great positive information we put out into the world and show people who we are, having a clear focus of, you know, what you do professionally and actually what you want people to know about you professionally is important. So having some sort of a document which you update every so often can be very, very useful in this day and age of ChatGPT and other language models. We're at a very strange situation because, in fact, the personal branding consultants that I know of, I don't believe that they are up to speed with how quickly you can change your personal brand. I think that also people now think, oh, well, I can get ChatGPT to do everything for me. And whilst you are able to put all your information in there and it can update it, I still don't think that it is as good as someone that is a really experienced writer. And, you know, I've been working very closely with a gentleman who he built $1 billion marketing business. And this chap approached me kind of early last year and said, I'd like to talk to you. And we've done many interviews. We probably talk between 1 and 5 hours a week online. He's out in California and I'm obviously here in Croatia. And he's in his 70s. He grew a business from a very small, kind of practically bankrupt marketing business into $1 billion a year enterprise. And he sold everything from horse manure to watches that didn't exist, more flowers than anyone else online, and chocolates. And so I'm learning a lot about copywriting, a lot about writing actually in general from him. And whilst you can use these tools, I think that there are problems because it sort of removes your style in many ways.
Exactly.
And you know, so I know personal branding is a really important thing, but I do think people need to be very careful they don't get lost in the sort of word salads, which is a phrase that he's recently started using again after coining it. I think it was invented in like 1800 or something, but a word salad is basically just a load of words that really aren't very well constructed, that don't really mean very much to anybody.
We see that very often online.
We do, yeah. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, I mean, I use some of these tools, right? And unless you're very selective into how you want the tool to write for you, it's not going to give you what output you really want anyway, because that actually takes some very, very strong strategic thinking around the words that you're using. Because in essence, your personal brand has some elements that are very, very important. So it has the first thing is, well, what do you actually do, right? Like that's the most important thing. Like, what do you actually do, right? So that's very important. Then it's like, well, why are you different and or better than anyone else? And then it's what gives you authority and credibility, right? And if you can put those three elements together and then wrap them up with some really great words that actually reflect who you are as an individual and how you communicate. So this particular process, you should be able to hand off a one-page document to an agency and you should say, this is how I communicate with people. Exactly. Now I want you to do that for me. And your brand could live on past your death, right? If you could brief someone to actually do that. And technology, you know, I mean, I know you're into tech as well, right? So you know, these digital twins, right? That's going to be a reality. The next maybe in the next I would say the next 5 years. I mean, Bill Gates says that we're all going to have our own digital twins. So if you think about that, once you've trained your language model that is in your style, you can then remove yourself from the day-to-day runnings of your social media personally and actually free your time to do something more important to you, or to grow your business, or do sports, or, you know, whatever it is. So I think personal brand right now is an interesting space for people to be in. I think that once that's put together with the CV, the actual alignment of skills like competence and confidence, once those two things are aligned, I think we're going to be in a really great place for people, because then it's like, well, okay.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask. I saw a lot of people pushing personal brands without actually having the essence behind. And it is possible because they're paying media outlets and all of that. But there is no value and sustainability behind it, right? There is nothing. And I believe one of the biggest mistakes we can do in our business is to have a great marketing without the great product we're selling behind the scenes, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Have you noticed that? I mean, I did on LinkedIn. It is all over the place.
Well, I think you can have a mediocre product, right?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, if you get your message right, people are going to buy it anyway. This is generally what really happens, and it's unfortunate, but
But it is
it's
true.
the way that it is. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right? I wrote a blog the other day about triggering emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you're speaking to the right audience and you can trigger their emotions to do something, whatever it is that you're selling or message you're pushing can be amplified, right? And this is where research comes into play. And Stephen talks a lot about becoming a shameless researcher. And
Mm-hmm.
with all of this tension in the world, and all of these deep fake images, fake videos, fake narrative which is being supported by rogue states, right? We have a responsibility ourselves, to question everything, right? And this is unfortunately part of the human condition, is that we are emotionally triggered to do things, and then we're going to rationalize it afterwards with information. So for example, I might see an advert for a Mini Cooper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my friend might say to me, man, you need to buy a Mini Cooper. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure I want a Mini Cooper. It's not really very practical. And I'm going to think about it. And then I'm going to go out and maybe I'll buy a Mini Cooper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
later this week, maybe I'll buy one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm going to go back to that and I'm going to try and rationalize that purchase based upon something. I'm going to be like, well, I needed it. And it's rainy here and it's winter, and you shouldn't be riding a motorcycle in the rain, and your road has got roadworks and blah blah blah, and you can carry stuff, and there's all this stuff, right? It's going to rationalize my decision.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same. It's the same with narrative. It's the same with messaging. It's the same with hiring someone like a brand consultant that really doesn't know what they're doing, and who's just basically decided, oh yeah, I'm going to be a brand consultant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't done any, they haven't helped anyone with a brand. They haven't worked with any clients, and that's a very difficult place to be at, right? That's the time where you have to say, well, okay, I'm going to give it away. I'm not even going to charge, right? And that's an interesting space, because it's a desperation, right? And desperate money, like when you're desperate, no one buys anything, right? And this is the biggest challenge for anyone who thinks they can be a brand consultant, because I personally believe well, I think right now, I think that smart people can do their own personal brands. I think that to get them really right, and to manage to get the narrative right around the content that they're putting out that's the real magic, right? Because and also people being able to tweak their brand, like to be able to say, oh, okay, so right, this year I was recognized as a LinkedIn Power Profile Award winner, right? What am I going to change that for, right? Oh, well, that was 5 years ago. Yeah, but it's a good thing. I mean, who do you know it's got one of those, right? So question is, strategically adding to your brand and actually directing it in the right direction is a very important job. And I don't believe that a language model is capable of doing that unless we sit down and we coach the language model. We're in essence, we're actually coaching a language model to coach us, to give us what we want, right?
Yes.
So it's an interesting one. It's an
I
interesting
actually
one.
speak with ChatGPT like it's a real person. And
Mhm.
I actually gave it a lot of my own writing. So it had helped me with that. I am enormously grateful to you because you shared so much value and so much beautiful experiences which you have with us. If anyone would like to connect with you or work with you, what would be the best way?
Oh, connect with me on LinkedIn, and please do send a message when you connect, because if you're like a podcast promoter, like, or something, like, I'm just not going to accept the connection, right? Like it.
Yeah, me too.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But LinkedIn is a good place. And if you want to, like, go to YouTube, I'm kind of in the process of building a YouTube channel, a couple of different ones, but I've got so many different podcasts that it's a very difficult piece. But I do work with a company called Bookboon, and they are owned by the Access Group. And they're a very large publisher of business related content. I think the largest in the world actually now. And so I have over 130 talks on there. I've got a few books. So that is a great place to find me also, because that's what makes me money, you know. So
We came to that question too at the end. I will leave the links in the description. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for being my guest. I truly enjoyed, and I hope you did too.
Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it also. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you. See you. Bye.